What does Fears of Fathom Norwood Hitchhike hide off camera from the player? In this second episode of Fears of Fathom, our character must survive this long trip home in the night. This game is dark and obscure with its visual style, and there's a lot the player can't see. Like this mysterious man that can be seen playing musical chairs all by himself, minus the chairs. Or how about Walter White driving off at the speed of light just after dropping us off at the motel? We have quite a bit to check out, and of course break, so I hope you enjoy this alternative look at this dark tale. As always, I usually hit you guys with a very brief recap, so everyone knows the sequence of events that take place throughout the game. Starting off, our character Holly is on the road, making her way home from a gaming convention. Through text, she lets her friends and family know she's on her way home, following with the gas light coming on. That's probably not good. We'll then see a suspicious person crossing the street, entering the woods, right before we reach the gas station. After we pay for gas, the employee asks if we're heading down the Norwood Valley Road, advising that people have been going missing down there. During this, we can see an individual who approaches our vehicle and begins to mess with it. Trying to interact with the man leads us to being ignored as he proceeds to walk back to this white van and then drive off. Oh yeah, we meet a customer as well, who doesn't have much to say, but we grab some dog food as requested by our mother, throw it in the trunk, and then continue on our trip home. We then find ourselves behind this car that ends up suspiciously speeding off after a while. And after a lot of driving, the player is then tasked with moving these logs that are obstructing the road, as our car breaks down in the process. The customer we saw in the gas station saves the day and gives us a lift to this, lovely motel. But there's a lot that goes on at the motel, so for now, let's focus on the trip to the motel first. Recap aside, let's get this ride home started. So as we begin driving, one of the first encounters we have is this van, which will drive by us, traveling the opposite direction. Those of you familiar will know that this van is bad news, and it won't be the last time we see it. Attempting a game of chicken with the van results with quite the obvious conclusion: death. Now, when the vehicle's gas light comes on, you can see a dirt path that is gated off. Getting out of the vehicle here, I decide to take a closer look as I delete this gate from existence. Following this dirt path leads to a slightly more open area, where we can find one-dimensional trees. These are, of course, background assets. There's really nothing else following this, as I sped up the game and continue looking around. You can see some mountains in the distance, but I quickly realized that we don't want to get lost, so I just headed back to the car. Forgetting that I left the game running at a higher speed, you can see I was struggling to drive. I backed into the trees as I was trying to get back on the road and ended up flipping the car. To my surprise, I was still able to drive the car despite it being flipped upside down. I couldn't help but laugh as I glided down the road on the roof of my car. Whatever works, I guess. Getting back on track though, the player ends up seeing a suspicious individual crossing the street and going into the woods. Normally, getting out of the car here and trying to follow reveals an invisible wall that prevents us from going any further. However, if we watch the sequence from a different perspective, we can get a better look at this bad guy, as he is called in the files. I would speculate that this bad guy is possibly casing the gas station that we're about to head to. I mean, he could just be a nature-loving kind of guy, which is unlikely, but I digress. His trip into the woods doesn't last long, as he despawns shortly after entering them. It's at this point that the player will reach the gas station. A gas station that, I'll admit, is a bit suspect in itself. There are two individuals in here, including the employee, known as Cashier, with the other being referred to as Gas Station Trucker. We're gonna call him Walter White though, because, yeah, he sort of looks like him. However, nothing to my knowledge really happens off camera at this part, so I decided to mess around in here before progressing. If the player decides to start grabbing a bunch of stuff off the shelves and dropping them all over, the cashier will get mad and ask what you're doing. If you keep doing it, he'll eventually threaten to call the police, but he'll never actually do it, thankfully. I felt threatened though, and wanted to make sure he wouldn't be able to use the store phone, so I shrank him. Big words for a small man, eh? Meanwhile, Walter White is just casually walking around like everything's fine, knowing fully well that we've seen he's been drinking this big boy milk. Our cashier friend is clearly in over his head at this point, but talking to Walter is pretty funny, as we break our neck while looking up at him. Unfortunately, while playing around with this milk carton, the game froze and I had to start over. In another instance, I deleted the gas station by accident, and as you can see, there was a lot going on. Getting back on track though, once the cashier is done with his storytelling, we can see a van parked outside the gas station. We can see it's the same van we passed from before, as it clips through a couple of objects out front. An individual will then appear near the van and start approaching our vehicle. This happens to be the same bad guy we saw walking across the street and into the woods from before, but as you can see, he'll approach our vehicle and begin to mess with it. Crouched down, he looks like he's tickling the inner portion of the tire. However, those of you that are familiar with the game know that this is just one step of many in this bad guy's evil plan. Once the player goes outside, the bad guy will retreat to the van and enter the van as it drives off. Following the van shows that it does drive for a bit before disappearing though. With that being all that really happens in this area, I slowly but surely make my way back on the road. Except, right after getting this shot, I lost sight of my car and then found it, well, in a tough spot. Our character at least keeps it real, as she says, "I wasn't the best at driving." Of course, I'm flipped upside down again, but I continue on driving and manage to reach this red car we normally end up behind. Taking a closer look at this car allows us to clearly see a hand sticking out of the trunk. And going in the trunk shows that it's in fact only a hand that's back here. Following the car with our camera as it speeds off shows that it does eventually disappear though. If we head up for an aerial view, we can see the tree line that follows with empty terrain. There's a lot of land out here, and going further out reveals some mountains, but that's about it. As for the following sequence of events, nothing really takes place behind the scenes. Once we've crossed the bridge, let's fix this, it's messing with my head. Much better! So after the bridge, we end up following this dirt road for a bit. There is a notable deserted car and a rabbit we come across, but it's actually this random area that I was more curious about. It's right before the logs that are obstructing the road. If the player gets out here, they'll see a gate, and once they approach it, they'll see a big old bear. The furry guy just awkwardly walks by. I decide to delete the gate and attempt to pet our new friend, but of course, I simply walked through him. This makes sense, seeing as the player is not supposed to be out here, but we can watch him mosey along, eventually disappearing. Now we're at the part where we normally would get out of the car and pull these logs aside to clear the way. Then, our car breaks down. So, what if we just don't get out of the car and the logs happen to just call in sick for the day? Well, as you can see, we can in fact continue driving along this road. This makes sense that we're able to drive out here, seeing as we'd eventually be continuing on this road with Walter White anyway, as in the guy from the gas station. I continued driving on this road, but eventually began to notice fewer trees. Then I reached a point where there was only a dirt road to follow. The road ends, and I began to realize that we may be approaching the edge of the map. Knowing this, I lay on the gas and plummet off the map as we enter this endless, disorienting freefall. I end up getting out of the car during this fall, only to lose sight of it immediately. Guess I should have moved the logs. So we go back and we move the logs, our car breaks down, and now we wait. A random car will drive by and ignore us. Standing in front of it results with it just clipping through our character. However, the next lights we see are our ticket out of here. Walter White will approach the scene and will in fact hit the player if we're in the way. It's pretty fun to watch as we grind against the front of his truck. We greet each other as if that didn't just happen, and eventually he offers us a ride. So we grab our stuff and I made a tiny change to his truck, but couldn't even get my belongings in the bed of it. So I revert him and his truck back to normal size and continue on. I forgot to mention this earlier, but when we try to dislodge the camera in this mode, we'll see that the truck follows it. This is because the truck is essentially parented to the camera, and they do this so the visual effects applied to the screen normally can be doubled up outside the windows, which makes it a lot harder to see. Thus the inside isn't as distorted, and we can fly off the car. As you can see though, it's really trippy looking. As we fly above the truck, we're technically in. After some small talk though, the game fades to black, loading us into the next area. The marvelous motel. At this point, we're dropped off at the motel by Walter White. We then get a key for our room at the front desk and are told that Tommy will be taking care of our car. Once getting to our room, we'll be jump scared by the guy that's going to be handling our car as he's suspiciously standing in the bathroom. After this awkward interaction, he'll leave as he makes his way to get our character's car. Once we're settled in with our stuff, we then lay down in the bed. It's not long after that we'll see a person staring at us from the front window. Going outside, we'll see the individual across the parking lot, where they retreat to another room. This is when our character wants some coffee, thinking it would help the situation. It just so happens that there's a coffee machine right next to room 4, where our friend that was looking through the window went. After consuming the coffee, we go into a spiraling dizzy state as our character trips out. Successfully getting back to our room and laying back down, our character will drift to sleep, only to wake up to someone walking away from the bedside and into the closet. not doing anything will result in a knock on the door, with it being the motel employee from the front desk. He says we have noise complaints from neighboring rooms. So after mentioning the incident with the coffee machine, he becomes annoyed, as he claims there is no coffee machine. Of course, when we go to show him the machine, it's mysteriously gone. Strangely enough, he tells us to just go back to our room and take the medication that's in there. Once the player does this, a few moments later, a flash comes through the window, followed by a suspicious person coming to our door. Let's stop there though, and go back to when we first got to this motel, and see what transpires behind the scenes throughout the sequence of events we just went over. As we load in, we can see Walter drive away into the cold, dark night. I wanted to watch where he goes, and must have messed with the speed of him while pausing the game, because when I unpaused it, he just takes off like a rocket into this endless void. Slowing it down to a near crawl shows that he still moves fairly fast, but as you can see, he'll just keep driving in one direction. He'll travel through some trees and then off the road, where he eventually reaches the edge and flies away. He just keeps going as the map gets smaller and smaller. If we take a closer look at him, we can see his head hanging down, like he's knocked out or perhaps asleep. But I believe it's because his model is still fixed on looking at our character. We never see him again though. Bon voyage, good friend! Coming back to the motel, if we go under the map and look above, we'll see that most of the rooms are empty. We can break the doors down and get a closer look at these very vacant rooms though, which are glorious. The front desk motel employee doesn't hide much, but I wanted to get behind the counter with him. So I removed the side door, not realizing it would destroy the entirety of it. He didn't seem impressed with what I've done, so I reminded him of who's the boss and shrank him into a baby man. Heading to room 9, we can peek into the bathroom where Tommy is waiting. Getting a closer look, I would have figured he was going to be the one trying to take my life. I mean, look at that face! When Tommy sets off to go get our car, it's fantastic to watch him walk. The movement overall was giving me Nintendo 64 GoldenEye vibes, that's for sure. He'll disappear as his tow truck rolls out in Autobot fashion though. Unlike the truck that dropped us off from before, this one will follow the road, eventually disappearing at the bend of the road. Something else to note, if you stand in front of the tow truck as it leaves, it will continuously push us, allowing the player to break through the bounds of the level with no mods. However, it's now time to sleep and wake up to this creeper in the window. Lo and behold, it ends up being the bad guy that we've been seeing throughout the entirety of this game. We normally see him cross the parking lot and go into a room, but what we don't see is that when he goes into this room, we can find him just walking in circles. He'll continuously just do this. Even breaking the door down and going inside doesn't faze him, as he continues this rigorous cardio workout. Before drinking the coffee though, the player should recognize this red car here, as it's the one we saw earlier with the hand poking out the trunk. If you listen carefully, you can hear someone breathing inside the car. Take a listen. Looking in the car, of course, reveals nothing, but I believe I know who we're hearing, and I'll explain my theory in a few moments. First, we'll drink the coffee, which leads us to a disorienting walk back to the room. Going to sleep once again follows with us waking up to this strange man who walks into our closet. However, as you can see, I froze the game so we can get a better look at him. I believe this is who we heard breathing in the red car, and that he is working with the bad guy. Going outside, we can see the trunk of the car is open too, suggesting he could have been hiding in there the whole time. Definitely food for thought, but I'm getting ahead of myself. This guy is called Creeper Sneaky in the files, which is hilarious. Looking in this closet that he hides in shows that he just disappears. Investigating the closet normally follows with a character being abducted, so we're not going to do that. We can find the motel employee just standing outside the front office all awkwardly, but answering the broken phone that rings and goes dead will eventually prompt the motel employee to start walking to our room. Something the player might have missed though is when we go to show the employee the coffee machine that he's unaware of. If the player looks back at their room, we can see Creeper Sneaky come out of our room and just walk away like a smooth criminal. He'll just appear in the room once we reach a certain distance. Following him, I deleted this fence where I saw him heading and ended up finding him out here walking around in circles, just like the bad guy. Who taught these guys how to act casual? The motel employee even followed me and couldn't care less about this creepo walking around out here. Something players also may not have noticed is when we discover the coffee machine is gone, we can come over here and find the white van that we saw the bad guy get in from before. This could explain why the coffee machine is gone, as they stashed it in the van. The van is also not here prior to drinking the coffee. I'm speculating and could be wrong, but let me know what you think in the comments. We go back to our room though, take some medicine, and then the final act takes place. We'll see a flash come from the window, and then Mr. Creepy Sneaky spawns in as he creepily approaches our door. He wants us to let him in, and oddly assures he's not the police. If you continually refuse him entry, he'll begin to bang on the door. We can see he's not really banging the door, as he just stands there, but when the door breaks down, he'll pursue the player and proceed to abduct them. His walk is fabulously dangerous, and there is no escaping the room. In another instance, I delete my way out of the motel room and manage to get right next to him. Unfazed by me, I continued the same dialogue with him as he began to break the door down. As soon as he breaks the door down, he does a 180 and pursues directly towards me. I wish I was recording audio of myself, as I couldn't stop laughing during this hilarious rundown. We're normally supposed to hide in the closet when he breaks down the door, which follows with him searching the room, eventually going into the bathroom. That's when the employee comes into the room and surprises Creeper Sneaky with a creepy sneaky punch of his own, as the screen fades to black. Our character will talk about how the entire night was weird and that she'll never go on a long road trip again. And then the credits roll. I wanted to explain that sequence first, because now if we go back and instead just open the door for Creeper Sneaky, as he requests, we can literally see him hiding on the side of the motel, waiting for us to come out. Not as sneaky as one would think. However, I decided to break my way through the motel rooms and exit out of one of them instead. I thought he might pursue me like from before, but he'll just continue to stand there and wait for us, despite the fact that he's staring directly at us. I went to go get the employee, but realized he wasn't loaded in. So, I tried loading him in myself, but didn't realize I accidentally loaded in the version of him that comes in the Punch the Dude. I didn't know what to do at this point, so I just let it play out. And as you can see, it's a strange situation altogether, as he punches nothing. The dialogue from a character starts popping up on screen, but never fades to black. After clicking through it all, it took me directly to the credits. I guess that's one way to beat it. Yeah, the credits area is just this long stretch of road as the tow truck drives on. I found some signs and fences throughout this area with no other significant findings. But with that, we've come to the end of Fears of Fathom 2. I hope you guys enjoyed my broken adventure. Subscribe if you did, and I'll see you in my next game break real soon. Cheers!